What's up, people? What's going on? Building a computer. Could you do it if you wanted to? I mean, seriously. I mean, assuming you had a guy who knew how to do it, he could walk you through the steps, he knew what he was doing, and all you had to do was follow along, and you can build one as well. Could you actually do it? Well, in today's video, I'm going to actually do that for you. I am your tech guru. I will help you along the way, assuming you get the exact same parts. Guys, if you can afford it, get the exact same parts that I have in the description below. I will also put some links in there for a budget build if you can't exactly afford the one I have below. But ideally, I would like you to have the exact same parts because it will really help you through this building process. Hello everyone, my name is Chevalier Brown, also known as BigVa, and also the CEO of BigVa Consulting. At BigVa, we provide a variety of professional services, including but not limited to building a PC, building your website, or helping you with your software development needs. If you're in the market for any of those services, please feel free to visit our website at BigVa.com. All right, when it comes to building a system, there are three aspects that you must understand. Okay, the first aspect, parts and terminology. Okay, you need to understand the difference between a solid state drive, a GPU, a PSU, and all those different terms that you hear or may not understand. It is critical that you have some fundamental knowledge in this particular area. Now, we're not going to get into all the different parts, but we're going to talk about a few of the parts. And actually, we're going to talk about the 5 main components. Okay, all right. The second aspect that you have to understand is that there are post-build activities. Okay, so once your system is configured and built, not configured, but once it's built, you may need to flash your BIOS. You may need to, you will need to load your operating system, and you may or may not need to download some drivers. Okay, so if you're not familiar with all those things, again, this is all involved with building your own system. So some people may say, oh, building a system is really easy. It's so easy. Well, yeah, it's easy because you already understand the parts and terminology. And yeah, it might be easy because you already understand what happens post-build as well. So the third aspect and what we're going to focus on in this particular build, in this particular video, is the mechanical process of building the system. Okay, so you're going to assume the parts are compatible and you have someone to help you through the process. And so that's what we're going to get through today. We're going to go from end to end, putting all the parts in and getting to the point where we can hit the on button and then boom. Again, I apologize, but I'm not going to talk about how to load the operating system. I would do a subsequent video for that. And also, I'm not going to go into detail about all the different parts. But I will tell you that, believe it or not, regardless of what you've heard, there are only 5 main components in a PC. Did you hear me? 5 main components. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the video. Boom. All right, so let's quickly take a look at the tools that we're going to use today for our build. Number one, you're going to use a small pair of scissors. All right, any standard small pair of scissors will do. Number two, you'll need a flathead screwdriver. I recommend a small flathead. This one is about 4 or 5 inches in length. And last but not least, and probably the most important of them all, and you can actually do without the first two in a crunch, but that would be your Phillips head screwdriver. And this Phillips head screwdriver has a magnetic tip. So these are the 3 tools that you'll need for your build today. So here's a look at all 5 main components together. Again, there are only 5 main components. And also you'll see the 3 tools that you'll need. So this is it. First thing we're going to do is we're going to ground ourselves because I'm actually building on carpet. Okay, yeah, this desk is wood and it's sitting on, wood handles, wood feet, but I need to actually ground myself. So I'm going to take the power supply out. And what we're going to do is we're going to take it and we're going to plug it into the wall. I'm going to sit it down on the desk, but we're going to leave it in the off position. And I'll show you that in just a second. Pull this out. Woo! Oh yeah. This is it right here. I'm gonna plug this in And then again, we're gonna put it to the off position. Okay, let me show you with the off position real quick. Okay. Not sure if you can see that, but on the back of the power supply, there's a little switch here, okay? And there's a 0 and there's a 1. If 1 is selected or pressed down, that means it's on. When 0 is pressed down, that means it's in the off position. So we want to make sure that this is in the off position as we ground ourselves, okay? So it's in the off position. Now we're going to connect our plug here. And it's here, it's in the off position, and yeah, we're good. All right, guys, so now we're gonna go ahead and prep our motherboard. We ground it. This is not a voiceover. I want everybody to know I'm still here. I'm just at a different angle. So hopefully this is clear and everybody can see this. So let's go ahead and open up our motherboard here. And again, don't worry about it if you don't have the exact same one. Ideally, I do want you to have the exact same one, but if you don't, it's okay. The motherboard is going to be wrapped in this cellophane. This is just to help to keep the static and things away from it. And typically what we want to try to do is sit it on top of the box. You know, it's a good place to prep it. We're going to go ahead and pop in our CPU. And as you know, we have the i7, Core i7, 9th generation, i7 9700K, LG 1151. Again, don't worry about what all that means. Just know that this motherboard is compatible with this particular CPU, okay? So with this in hand, I'm gonna go ahead and lift the lever on the motherboard, okay? Now, this may take a little bit of force here, but don't worry about it. You're not breaking it. Okay, so just lift that up, lift this up, lift up the cover there. Okay, now I'm just gonna gently place this into the motherboard. The way to know that you're placing it the correct way is by making sure that the lettering is facing you. And when you look on the motherboard itself, the lettering should be facing you as well, okay? So it basically lines up. See, it says join the Republic here, and it's in the same orientation, okay? So that's how you know you're putting it in correctly. Okay, so now all you're gonna do is just place it down into the thing, okay? Nice and gently. Again, don't worry if you accidentally drop it or something like that. It's not gonna tear up. See, like I just did there. Okay, so give it a nice little snug there. It's securely in the socket. Now, what you're gonna do is close this down like this. And it's gonna take a little bit of force, but don't worry, you're not breaking it. All right, and when that happens, the cover is gonna pop off. Okay guys, so we're getting ready to install our high-powered CPU cooler. And so the first thing we need to do is put on the back plate. Okay, so this goes on the back of the motherboard and the orientation. Okay, I know I did say that there were only 5 main components, and there are, but you do actually need a cooler. So if you're using a non-overclockable chip, let's say the 9700, you will not need a cooler of this size. However, if you're using a chip with a K on the end, a CPU with a K on the end like mine, the 9700K, you will need a subsequent cooler. I prefer air coolers, and the Noctua cooler is one of the best. And I just thought it would be cool to show how to install this particular cooler. Now, they look basically the same on both ends, but one end may be a little sharper and a little flatter, so that's the end you want to touch down. Okay, I'm gonna put on these little brackets there. Hopefully you guys are able to follow along for those who are installing this same exact cooler. It's a really nice cooler, and it will be just as good as water cooling. I mean, of course, with the water cooling, you're probably gonna get a little bit better performance, but these coolers are pretty good. All right, so now we're gonna get these 4 screws here. I'm gonna put these on the top of there. So and these are all inside of the box. So anytime you install the screws, you want to try to install them in a counter corner style fashion. You know, one here, one there, one here, one there. So that way you apply even pressure throughout the course of your build. I know maybe all right, so let's go ahead and apply just a tad bit of thermal paste. Let's see. Okay, let's take that off. And now we just go ahead and, now when applying the thermal paste, little is the best thing, right? Don't put too much. You want to try to get it right in the center of the CPU. You can see here, I'm just gonna press it until we just get some right in the center. Oop, might be too much actually. Let's see. It's like a pea size. Okay. So as you can see, I may have put just a tad too much, but we should be good. All right. Get into, just gently line it up. Gently line it up. Now we've successfully installed our cooler. And now you can actually lift the motherboard by the cooler. That's when you know it's on correctly. Okay? All right. Is that cool or what? Okay, now this is arguably one of the most important aspects of your PC, and that is the storage drive. In this case, we're going to use the Samsung 970 EVO PLUS NVMe M.2 solid state drive. Okay, so effectively it's a solid state drive and it fits directly onto the motherboard because it's the M.2 version. Now, if it was a regular one, you would need the data and the power connectors from the motherboard into that particular part. But with the NVMe M.2 drive, it fits directly onto the board and it allows you to have much faster read and write speeds. Okay, so Samsung produces one of the best. I could have gone up to the Pro for about another $100 or so, but the EVO Plus is pretty darn good. That's also why it's important to have a magnetic tip Phillips screwdriver. All right, so now we're just gonna screw this on here and we're gonna be installed. And you basically just turn it until it stops. No need to screw it down real hard or anything, so. All right, so let's talk about this board for just 1 second. So what do we have? We have the motherboard. That's part number one. Remember I told you there were 5 main components. Part number 2 is our solid state drive. All right, part number 3 is the memory. It's not installed yet. And part number 4 would be the Core i7. All right, so let's go ahead and pop in our memory. Oh, but you know what? Before we do that, let's go ahead and put our heat shield back on. Let's go ahead and place this inside of the DIMM slot. We have to push down on these tabs here, okay, and let it go down nice and evenly there. And all you want to do is press down until it clicks. It should click on both sides. There we go. All right, one DIMM slot in the second slot. Okay, let's make sure it's lined up appropriately. Okay. Go. Click. Click. All right. So you have successfully installed 32 gigs of RAM. You have successfully installed a 1 terabyte solid state drive. You have also successfully installed your i7 9700K. Now we can go ahead and put the fan back on. Okay, let's see. The air is going to blow through this way, so we'll hook it this way. Okay. Okay guys, so I've already taken out the case. This is the NZXT 210i, and this is a mini-itx case. So it will only fit mini-itx motherboards, and that's what we're dealing with today. And so we're ready to place the motherboard inside of the case. And so as you can see down into the case, you see these little 4 points here. Those are the standoffs that keeps the motherboard away from the contact of the board itself. Let's make sure that we get it down nice and perfectly. Oh, and for this board, we don't need to install an IO shield because it already comes pre-installed on this particular board. That's why it's good to get the good motherboards. I mean, the more expensive boards if you can, because this thing can be a pain trying to get it into the back of the case. All right, so I'm just gonna nice and gently lower this down into the case here. All right, so all I'm gonna do is just take this and screw it right into this little hole here. I'm gonna do that on all 4 sides. I don't think this board is going anywhere. What do you guys think? Yeah, me either. All right, so boom. The motherboard is installed, and now we can flip this bad boy over this way, and you can begin to see the start of something new. Isn't that beautiful? Isn't that beautiful? Okay, so now I want you to hang in there. In regards to our power supply, we'll be using a modular power supply today. Modular means that this particular power supply does not have any attached cables. So all the cables that need to go from the power supply to the motherboard need to be attached manually. And there's going to be a cable for the main 24-pin power connector, an 8-pin CPU connector, and also a connector for our graphics card. Oh, and one more, the connector for the RGB hub on the back of the case. So those are our connections, and I will show them in just a second. All right, so those 4 screws are going to go back into the power supply area, and it'll be nice and secure. Let's start here. Don't screw. Okay, so for first-time builders, I think the best way to do this is just to show a clear illustration of where everything plugs into. You have the plugs from the case into the motherboard, and also from the power supply into the motherboard. So here we go. First up is the HD audio connector. Next is your USB 2.0 connector, the front panel connector, the USB Type-C connector, USB 3.0 connector, and now your connections from the power supply into the motherboard, the 24-pin connector, And next is the 8-pin CPU connector. You can't actually see it from this angle, but it's right behind there. Okay, so now that everything is connected, or almost everything is connected, we want to go ahead and pop in our graphics card. All right, so I've taken the graphics card out already and it's ready to go. But first, we need to make sure that the 2 brackets in the back are removed. And I have already removed them. They're like 4 thumb-sized screws you have to remove. It's a piece of cake. Okay, and then you want to make sure that your power is already connected to the power supply. So here's the other end of it right here. Okay, it's an 8-pin connector and it's going to go into the video card. All right, so then the last step is just, there's a little tab at the end right here. You want to make sure this tab is pressed down. That will allow the graphics card to fit into the socket. Okay, so there is only one. If we're dealing with the larger motherboard, there would be more than one, but this only has one, so there's nothing to mess up here. All right. So now the next step is to just gently glide it into place, and so I will switch to that right now. All right, so here we go. We're just gonna line it up as I showed you in the previous clip. And there are a few wires we have to deal with from the HD audio front panel and USB 2.0, but there's a little notch right here, so we should be able to get around that. All right, let's go ahead and pop it into place. And don't forget to securely fasten the 4 thumb-sized screws. All right, now let's go ahead and plug in our graphics card. As you can see here, we have an 8-pin connector, and the other end of this is connected to our power supply. And as you can see, it can only fit in one way, and it's going to go into the hole right here. Okay, let's just go ahead and plug that in nice and securely. You should hear a little click. All right, so now it's plugged in. Oh, and in regards to cable management, there's really no science here, just do your best. So I'm going to knock this out in 3, 2, 1, second. All right, cable management is done. As you can see, it's looking pretty clean, if I should say so myself. And now we're gonna go ahead and slap on the case cover and turn it on. Okay, so now this next step may seem blatantly obvious, but we want to make sure we plug in the power, the audio connector, and we want to plug in our monitor, keyboard, and mouse. Okay, last step is once you power on your system, it will go to what's called a BIOS screen. From there, you can check and make sure everything is installed properly. And then you can shut your system down, plug in your installation disk, and go ahead and load Windows. Hey guys, thank you so much for hanging in there. If you like this video, please please consider subscribing to my channel. If you have any comments or suggestions for future content, please feel free to leave that in the comment section. And as a nation, I know we're going through a tough time, but please hang in there, everybody. I will see you guys in the next video.